Hi, snackers. I'm Nat. Ever wonder why winter feels eternal? Why some years the darkness and cold seem to stretch beyond their natural bounds? The ancient Finns did. And they blamed it on one of the most fascinating figures in their mythology, a witch queen whose power was so vast she could steal the sun itself. Today we're sinking our teeth into the story of Louhi, the mistress of Pohjola. Yeah, mind-blowing. The Finnish are deep like that.
Ever imagined a world, shrouded in darkness
Ooh,
because someone just went and stole the sun and the moon?
wow.
That's just one of the things Louhi, this powerful queen of Pohjola, is said to have done in Finnish mythology.
She sounds like a real piece of work.
Oh, she absolutely is.
Yeah.
Pohjola is this realm of Finnish myth,
Okay.
often depicted as like the cold and mysterious north.
Right.
And Louhi is its queen.
Uh-huh.
You might know her from the Kalevala,
Okay.
this epic poem that's really important to Finnish culture.
Right.
But you'll be surprised to know there's a lot more to her story. Ready to go beyond the typical villain narrative?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
Okay, so the Kalevala often paints Louhi as this hag, a gap-toothed crone,
Oh, wow.
someone purely evil.
Oh.
But the thing is, the guy who compiled it, Elias Lönnrot,
Right.
he was trying to create a national epic for Finland.
Ah, so he might have played up her villainous side
Uh-huh.
to make the heroes look even more heroic, right?
Exactly.
It's a classic storytelling technique,
Yeah.
but doesn't necessarily reflect the whole truth.
And when you start looking beyond the Kalevala,
Okay.
things get way more interesting.
Like what?
Take this blog, Spirit Boat,
Okay.
which focuses on Finnish shamanism.
Okay.
They suggest that Louhi might be a powerful shaman herself,
Huh.
a ruler, and maybe even a goddess
Wow.
linked to death and illness,
Ooh, that's interesting.
but also healing and midwifery.
Now, that's fascinating.
Right.
It makes you think about how nature itself
Yeah.
isn't just sunshine and rainbows.
Uh-huh.
You need those darker, more destructive forces, too,
Right.
for balance and renewal.
And she's not just connected to these forces.
Yeah.
She can actually control them.
Really?
We're talking serious magical powers here.
What kind of powers are we talking?
Shape-shifting, especially into this giant eagle.
Why?
Talk about an intimidating image.
Yeah.
Control over the weather, conjuring up harmful frosts and storms.
Mm.
And she even manages to steal the sun and the moon in one story.
Those are some serious powers.
I know, right?
It reminds me of figures like Hel in Norse mythology,
Uh-huh.
who rules the underworld.
Right.
Could these figures from different mythologies be reflecting some shared
Yeah.
ancient belief system across cultures?
It's definitely a possibility.
That's fascinating.
And that makes you wonder, how much of a villain is she really? Especially when you consider how closely she's connected to the Sampo.
Ah, yes, the Sampo.
You know it.
I've heard it described as this magical artifact that brings wealth and well-being to whoever possesses it, like
Yeah.
a Finnish philosopher's stone.
Exactly.
You know, Holy Grail.
Everyone wants it.
Right.
And Louhi's story is heavily intertwined with it.
I bet.
We'll definitely unpack the whole Sampo saga a bit later.
Looking forward to it. But before we get there, you mentioned shamanism.
Yeah,
Can you explain a little more about what that means in the context of Louhi?
of course. So shamanism, in simple terms, is a practice
Okay.
that involves connecting with the spirit world and harnessing spiritual power.
Right.
And the Spirit Boat blog suggests that Louhi might actually be more than just a mythological figure.
Oh, right.
They propose that she might be an actual entity,
Mm.
a living, supernormal person
Wow.
that shamans can contact through their practices.
Now that's a thought-provoking idea.
Isn't it?
It really challenges how we typically think about mythology.
And they take it even further by calling her a deity in formation.
What do they mean by deity in formation?
Meaning her powers and attributes have evolved over time.
Could you expand on that a bit?
Sure. Essentially, they're saying that Louhi might have started as a more localized nature spirit
Okay.
or goddess.
Uh-huh.
And over time, as people told and retold her stories,
Right.
she gained more prominence and power,
Okay.
eventually reaching a level where she could be considered a full-fledged deity.
That's a really interesting way to think about how deities evolve alongside human understanding and cultural shifts.
Absolutely. And even though there are all these different interpretations of who and what she is,
Right.
they all seem to agree on one thing.
What's that?
She's deeply connected to nature.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah.
Whether she's a villain, an anti-heroine, a shaman,
Uh-huh.
or a goddess in the making.
Right?
Louhi's story seems inseparable from the power and mystery of the natural world.
Exactly. And to really illustrate that point,
Sorry.
let's take a look at one specific story
Uh,
from the book Finnish Legends for English Children,
okay.
The Tale of How She Stole the Sun and Moon.
Okay, I'm all ears. This sounds dramatic.
So in this story, you have this legendary hero named Väinämöinen.
Okay.
He's playing his magic kantele,
Kantele.
this Finnish stringed instrument,
Oh.
and his music is so enchanting that it draws the sun and the moon down from the sky.
Sounds beautiful, but I bet that's where things take a turn.
You know, Loki sees her chance,
Uh-oh.
snatches both the sun and the moon,
Wow.
and hides them away in Pohjola.
Talk about a power move.
Right.
But what does she hope to gain by plunging the world into darkness?
That's where the interpretations get really interesting.
Okay.
In some versions, it seems like she's just acting out of pure greed,
Right.
wanting all the light and warmth for herself. But other versions suggest maybe she's trying to test the heroes,
Oh?
creating a challenge for them to overcome.
Let's see how both interpretations work.
Yeah,
On one hand, you've got the classic power-hungry villain,
right.
but on the other, you could argue that by creating this crisis,
Yeah.
she's pushing humanity to rise to the occasion, proving their strength and resilience.
It's like those myths where the gods create obstacles not to be cruel,
Right.
but to teach humans valuable lessons.
Exactly.
Ah.
It's a reminder that sometimes adversity can be a catalyst for growth and transformation.
Okay, so back to the story with the sun and the moon gone.
Right.
The world is in chaos, right?
Yeah.
People are freezing, crops are failing.
Oh, no.
It's a full-blown crisis.
Wow.
Naturally, Väinämöinen isn't just going to sit back and let this happen.
No hero ever would. What does he do?
He teams up with Ilmarinen,
The Marinen.
who you might remember as the Master Smith,
Right, right.
who some believe has a connection to the Norse god Thor.
Oh, right, the one who might have forged the Sampo.
That's the one.
So these two heavy hitters set off to get the sun and moon back from Louhi.
Yep.
What happens next?
Well, they embark on this epic quest to Pohjola.
Okay.
And along the way, they encounter all sorts of magical creatures and obstacles,
Like what?
talking animals,
Oh, wow.
shape-shifting beings, even a journey to the underworld, the whole 9 yards.
It sounds like a classic hero's journey.
Yeah.
Full of trials and tribulations, but also a testament to the power of human perseverance and ingenuity.
Absolutely. They eventually confront Loki
Okay.
and demand the return of the sun and the moon.
I bet that doesn't go smoothly.
You guessed it, there are different versions of how this confrontation plays out.
Okay.
But ultimately, the heroes manage to outsmart Loki and reclaim the sun and moon, restoring balance to the world.
It sounds like a classic battle between order and chaos, light and darkness.
Right.
And ultimately, even with all her power, Louhi can't completely disrupt the natural order.
Which brings us back to her complex nature.
Okay.
She might represent these darker forces.
Yeah.
But she's not all-powerful.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe, she plays a necessary role in the grand scheme of things. That idea of necessary darkness is a recurring theme in mythology, isn't it? Without challenges to overcome, without darkness to contrast the light,
Right.
maybe we wouldn't appreciate the good things as much.
I like that perspective. Okay, so we've talked about her portrayal in the Kalevala.
The shamanistic perspective from the Spirit Boat blog.
Right.
Her possible connection to figures like hell. And even dove into a specific story showcasing her power. What's left to explore?
Well, we can't wrap up our deep dive into Louhi without addressing the elephant in the room.
Okay.
The Sampo, this magical artifact,
Right.
is central to her story and the Kalevala as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. We touched on it earlier,
Yeah.
but it's definitely time to delve deeper.
Okay.
As we mentioned, the Sampo is described as this mill that produces endless wealth and well-being.
Right.
Grain, salt, gold, basically everything a society needs to thrive.
Wow. And Louhi's role in all this
Yeah.
is where things get especially intriguing.
Okay.
Depending on which source you consult. She either commissions the Sampo, steals it,
Right.
or uses it for good or evil.
And that's what I find so fascinating about Louhi. There are so many different versions of her story and her motivations.
Like each storyteller is offering their own interpretation, highlighting different aspects of her character.
Right.
So is she a mastermind who orchestrates the creation of the Sampo for her own gain? Or is she a guardian who protects this source of abundance?
Right.
Or maybe she's just a complex being caught in a web of circumstance.
Exactly, and that ambiguity is what makes her such a compelling figure.
It's a good reminder that in mythology, as in life,
Yeah.
things aren't always black and white.
Well said. There's a YouTube video called The Goddess Lohi and the Sampo
Okay.
that does a great job highlighting all these different versions of the story.
It really showcases how interpretations of Loki and her motivations regarding the Sampo can change dramatically.
It definitely does. It's amazing how such a central element of her story
Right.
can be seen in so many different lights.
In some versions of the story,
Yeah.
she seems driven by pure greed, hoarding the Sampo's riches for herself and her people in Poyola.
Right.
But in others, she's portrayed as more of a guardian,
Okay.
using the Sampo to test the hero's worthiness.
That makes you wonder, is she motivated by power protection?
Yeah.
Or maybe even a sense of duty to her realm?
Precisely. It really adds to the complexity of her character,
Yeah.
wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it's why we can't easily label her as simply a villain or a hero.
It's a good reminder that in mythology, as in life,
Right.
people's motivations are rarely simple or straightforward.
Yeah.
There are often layers of meaning and conflicting desires at play.
So what does it all mean? We've looked at Loki from so many angles.
Right.
The powerful sorceress from the Kalevala,
Yeah.
the potential shaman and deity in formation, according to Spirit Boat, her possible connection to figures like Hel from Norse mythology,
Right.
and of course her complex relationship with the Sampo.
Yeah. What are your final thoughts on Loki? After this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm convinced that Loki is a truly multifaceted figure. She embodies the power and mystery of nature,
Yeah.
the complexities of good and evil, and the enduring human fascination with the unknown.
It's almost as if she represents the contradictions inherent in the world itself, right?
Totally.
The light and the darkness, the creation and the destruction,
Yeah,
the beauty and the terror of nature.
exactly. And that's what makes her such a compelling figure to study. She defies easy categorization,
Right.
constantly challenging us to look deeper and question our assumptions.
You know, it makes me wonder if the sometimes negative portrayal of Louhi
Yeah.
in certain versions of the myth
Okay.
might reflect a certain societal discomfort with powerful women.
That's a very interesting point. After all, she's often demonized for possessing the same ambition, strength, and cunning
Right.
that would be celebrated in a male character.
It's something to think about, isn't it?
Definitely.
How much of our perception of Louhi is shaped by cultural biases and traditional gender roles?
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we should always be critical of the stories we're told.
Yeah.
And try to see beyond the surface to understand the complexities
Right.
of the characters and their motivations.
I couldn't have said it better myself, so
Right.
for you, the listener.
Right.
The next time you encounter a seemingly straightforward villain, whether in mythology literature or even real life,
Yeah.
take a moment to consider their story from their perspective.
Okay.
There might be more to them than meets the eye.
Just like Louhi, she reminds us that the world is full of nuances, contradictions, and multiple layers of meaning waiting to be discovered.
And that's another serving of cranium snacks consumed. That Louhi sure earned every bit of her fearsome reputation. She wasn't just powerful, she was clever, cunning, and absolutely ruthless in protecting her domain. In many ways, she was the original gaslight, gatekeep girl boss. If your idea of girl bossing includes literally hiding the sun and moon in a mountain. So if this episode made your neurons tingle, smash that subscribe button and ring that bell. Your brain will thank you later. And hey, speaking of things that'll make your brain cells do backflips, next episode we're serving up something extra spicy. Picture this, an Instagram account that seemed totally normal on the surface, until internet sleuths noticed something wasn't quite right. What followed was a digital investigation that spread across years and platforms, leading to, well, you'll have to tune in to find out. Trust me, this one's going to be a full-course meal for your mind. Until then, keep snacking on knowledge.